Shalom, shalom. Peace, peace, everyone. I want to thank you guys for joining the Fourth Angels Learning Center today and participating in our class. Today, we're going to be taking a closer look at the fifth commandment. We're going to be looking at different aspects to it besides just the usual way that it's used, obey your parents. So we're going to look at this in a more broader sense, in a more broad sense. Again, I want to thank you guys for joining us. I'm Jadiel, and we're going to be breaking this down so that way we can get a clear view on how to actually live this command or walk this command out. All right, so we're going to start at Exodus chapter 20. We're looking at verse 12, I believe. All right, and it says, honor your mother and father. Honor your father and your mother. And then it says that your days may be long upon the land which yahuah your Elohim gives to you. So we see clearly that there's this promise that's directly connected to this command. So it's very important for us to grasp what this command actually is referring to, so that way we can actually receive this promise, or live this promise out. Yah is definitely desiring for us to reach that fullest potential, that full stature of righteousness, which comes from the understanding, the deep understanding of his law, not just the surface, letter of it. He wants us to go deeper than just what's expressed in an example. So when it says honor your mother and father, that your days may be long in the land which yahuah your Elohim gives you, I want to focus at this point on the promise. So we have this promise of long days, life being prolonged. Let's look at Ephesians chapter 6, looking at verse 1 to 4. 1 to 4. And it says, children, obey your parents in the master, for this is right. Honor your father and your mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with you and you may live long on the earth. And then it says, and your fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the master. So this is very important. This is kind of like the dynamic, the home dynamic. So he's referring to the children being obedient to the parents in this respect, and honoring them. So there was two aspects, obedience and then honoring. And we're going to look at how the parents, well, we're not going to look at it, but then it also mentioned how the parents were not to provoke the children to wrath, to provoke them with this, this desire to kind of separate themselves from them. And this is very important for us to understand, because that provoking is what's causing many people to disregard the full understanding of this command. And we're going to go back. Let's go back to Exodus chapter 20. So we see that this promise of living long is something that we definitely should be trying to attain, especially in regards to walking it out properly and in righteousness and in reality, not just like an arbitrary, obey, yes ma'am, yes sir. That's not what this command is talking about. And we're going to see that right now. So when you look at the Hebrew word for honor, the Hebrew word for honor in Exodus chapter 20 verse 12 is kabad. And this is an interesting aspect. Listen to this. The word kabad means to be heavy, burdened, to be weighty, to have something, to have a lot. There's also an idea of being grievous, hardened, heavy, burdened. So it's interesting that it tells you to honor your father and mother, and then the word for honor actually means burdened or heavy or grievous. And the reason why this Hebrew word is used is supposed to emphasize on what we're doing, our actions towards our father and mother. So This command is talking about bearing the burden of caretaking for your father and mother. The word kabad also means caretaker as well. So we see that this is not only talking about little tiny children listening to their parents as they give them commands, but this is talking about us taking care of our parents, bearing the burden of our father and mother when they're old, being their caretakers just as they were our caretakers, directing them, leading them when they need help, just as they have done for us. So with that in regards, when we're looking at this burden yourself with your father and mother, or carry the burden of taking care of your father and mother, that your days may be long upon the land which Yahuwah your Elohim gives you. Now we're going to get some confirmation on this understanding of this command. I know a lot of people's situation is different. I'm not here to basically specify what situations would allow this to apply. I'm not looking at that. I'm just looking at what the commandment actually means. And those who are true to keeping Torah would ask Yah as they study this out, how can I apply this to my life? How can I exercise this command, this statute? So with this, I want to make sure that we not only negate, I don't want to negate the aspect of reverencing your father and mother, but I want to emphasize on the fact that it's not only a reverencing or a respect to what they say, it's more about you bearing them. That's what the word honor, or the Hebrew word kabad, is emphasizing on, bearing them as you are now their caretaker, until they pass. Very important. This is how the forefathers lived. This is how the patriarchs lived. They lived in this way, in which even when their children were grown men, the head of the household was the father that was alive. Isaac, Esau and Jacob were grown men, but they were still considered his children. They honored and respected what he said, but they also took care of him. They also made him food. They also were burdened with his ailments. Whatever he needed, whatever Abraham needed, whatever Jacob needed, the children provided that, and they took care of it. And when he died, then they passed on the burden of being the head of household to the firstborn, in these situations, to the most responsible. So it's very important not to only stick to the aspect of just sitting there and saying, okay, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, and then calling that respect. But this is bearing the burden of taking care of your parents when they're not able to take care of themselves. And we're going to see that Messiah brought this up with extreme severity in Matthew chapter 15. Extreme severity. This was very serious in his eyes. He definitely bore the burden of taking care of his mother. When you look at the way that he lived and how he interacted with his mother, he took care of her, even to the point of when he died on a tree. He looked at John and he said, John, this is your mother. He was setting up a situation or a scenario in which his mother would be taken care of, even at the time of his death. So this is very important to Messiah, to take care of your parents in this respect. So looking at Matthew 15, we're going to see what Messiah says in verse 4 to 6. He's dealing with these traditions. He's dealing with the traditions that the Pharisees and Sadducees are trying to press onto the disciples as they're watching them eat without washing their hands, right? So this is let's just start from verse 1. Matthew chapter 15, starting from verse 1. It says, Then came to Yahushua scribes and Pharisees which were of Jerusalem, saying, Why do your disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? So they refer to not following the traditions as transgression. This is how deep their horrible traditions were. It says, For they wash not their hands when they eat bread, And he answered and said to them, why do you also transgress the commandment of Elohim by your tradition? And now he's about to point out in the following verses, he's about to point out what tradition they created to nullify the fifth commandment. He says, for Elohim commanded, saying, honor your mother and father. And he also said, he that curses mother and father, or father or mother, let him die to death. Right? Let him die to death. This is pretty serious. Verse 5, but you say, now he's about to mention this tradition. It says, whosoever shall say to his father or mother, it is a gift or offering, by whatsoever you might be profited by me, and honor not his father or mother, he shall be free. I'm about to break this down in a second. Thus have you made the commandment of Elohim of none effect by your tradition. Let me explain what they just did. They said, whosoever shall say to his father and mother, I gave a gift, or I gave an offering, mightiest be profited by me. So to a large offering, if a person, according to this tradition, if a person gave a large enough offering to the temple, that they would be free from the responsibility of taking care of your father and mother, because they utilized their expenses to bless the temple. So I know that many people look at these these prosperity gospel teachers out here, and how they was trying to get money from everybody. Look at what it says here. If they gave a large enough offering to the temple, and they did not have enough to take care of their mother and father, they were excused from that command because they gave to the temple. So this is what Messiah is saying, that they have made the commandment of Elohim of none effect because of this traditions, because of the traditions that they make. And this is something that's very important for us to understand. We cannot deviate from what the commandments is instructing us to do or to perform. We have to understand why this is happening and the honor behind it, the integrity behind this command. This command is not only saying to respect and reverence your father and mother, it's also saying to bear the burden of helping them, of providing for them when they are in need of that provision. It doesn't mean, certain, I'm not going to focus on certain circumstances and certain situations. I'm just going to say what it means, and it definitely can apply accordingly. Just like with a child. I mean, it is definitely the parent's responsibility to take care of the child. But at the same time, when a child is a certain age and when a child is performing certain acts or doing certain things, there is no, there's this disconnect between that responsibility and between that person and executing that responsibility. So the fifth commandment, very important for us to understand. Those who have, wonderful parents or parents who are trying to search the scriptures, or parents who try to serve Yah, even in a traditional way, Christian churches or whatever it may be, and they're trying to bring that gentleness or whatever it may be, and even if they're deceived by certain doctrines or whatever it may be, if it's in your power to take care of those parents, then you need to take care of them and honor them in this way. You need to bear the burden upon yourself when they are unable to bear the burden themselves. So I hope that this was edifying. I hope that this was made a little bit clear, because it's not just simply about obedience. It's about taking care, being a caretaker to your father and mother. And I hope that we understand this principle and this responsibility of carrying our parents that once carried us, taking care of them, taking the burden that they had to bear when we were children, and now we bear that burden when they are older. So I hope that this was edifying. I hope that you enjoyed this class. I hope that you learned something. I thank you guys for joining us, and I'll see you in the next class. Shalom. Shalom, shalom. Thank you guys for joining our study today. I hope that it was edifying. And if you want to support this ministry, you can support us on 4alc.com. And don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube page. Click the like button and the notification bell. I hope to see you guys on the next study. Shalom, guys.